iOS 18 is shaping up to be the biggest update to iOS in over a decade. After many years of very minor iOS updates, Apple's about to drop this big one on us next year. Let's talk about it. First and most significantly, a redesign. The last time iOS saw a major redesign was with iOS 7 in 2013. That's over 10 years ago now. Fast forward to today, and while yes, iOS 17 does look different to iOS 7, it overall has the same characteristics. But according to Mark Gurman, he says that not just iOS 18, but all of Apple's 2024 software updates are internally described as ambitious and compelling, with major new features and designs. If Apple is thinking that internally, then it's going to be pretty serious. Now, we don't know exactly what iOS 18 could look like, but we may have some hints at what it could look like. With Apple's Vision OS software, we've seen a brand new design aesthetic that Apple has used in the past, but haven't used to this scale, and that's called a glass morphism. It's essentially as if the software looks like frosted glass. It's pretty crucial for Vision OS, as the software must feel like you're interacting with physical objects, but for other platforms like iOS, it will give the software a bit of a facelift, a bit more of a modern look and feel. Obviously, we don't know if this is the exact design aesthetic Apple's going to do with iOS 18, but it would look cool. Now that macOS, watchOS, and even tvOS have all gotten major design overhauls, it's now time for iOS to get one. Next, the biggest tech buzzword of 2023, AI. You already know about AI and how it's being implemented with chatbots like ChatGPT and Google Bard, and image generators like DALL-E and Bing AI. With iOS 18 and all of Apple's software next year, Apple is going to lean heavily into AI. Mark Gurman says that Apple is working on generative AI features, including finally a smarter version of Siri for iOS 18. In fact, Apple is apparently looking into making Siri the ultimate virtual assistant. Apple has also been working on revamped integration between Siri and Messages, and auto-generated Apple Music playlists as well, and AI and productivity apps like Keynote and Pages. And unlike other companies where these AI features are done over some sort of server, Apple's planning on all of these AI features to be done on-device with the Neural Engine and Apple Silicon, meaning that these can work offline. Some AI features, however, will be exclusive to the upcoming iPhone 16 series, but hopefully the majority of them will be coming to all devices. Next, sideloading. Yeah, you heard me right. Sideloading on the iPhone. Apple has been pretty vocal about sideloading and why it wouldn't be great to have on the iPhone. In fact, Apple's Craig Federighi went on stage at Web Summit in 2021 to share some thoughts on sideloading. And at WWDC 2023, Craig and Greg Joswiak shared some things about sideloading during John Gruber's talk show. But as much as Apple hates it, they still need to comply with the EU regulations to bring sideloading and third-party app stores to the iPhone. The catch is that when this releases, Apple is only going to make it available in the EU first, and it's unclear on when or even if it will be available globally. And this feature is actually not going to be an iOS 18 feature. It's actually going to be an iOS 17 feature. In fact, in recent iOS 17 updates, there have been references to sideloading coming to the iPhone. This does make sense, as Apple most likely doesn't want this to be a standout feature for iOS 18, and they want to bury it as much as they can. Sideloading isn't going to be the only thing the EU is going to force Apple to put on the iPhone. Apple is also going to be implementing RCS support to the iPhone. RCS, or Rich Communication Services, is a new messaging standard that's been on Android for many years. It's going to allow for much higher quality photos and videos, audio messages, typing indicators, read receipts, sending messages over Wi-Fi, better group chats, and end-to-end encryption. But for the longest time, Apple's been refusing to add RCS to the iPhone, and instead resorting to SMS messaging if you want to send messages to Android users, which has none of those features I just mentioned for RCS. But it looks like you won't need to buy your mom an iPhone, as Apple confirmed that they will be integrating RCS Universal Profile to the iPhone next year, which basically means iOS 18. But notice how I said RCS Universal Profile. That's because while RCS Universal Profile has most of the features that typical RCS has, the thing it's lacking is end-to-end encryption. And in case for some reason you thought that the message bubbles will no longer be green, Apple also confirmed that the message bubbles will continue to be green for RCS and SMS text. iMessage will stay blue. So while we did get most of what we wanted, we didn't get all of it, but still a win nonetheless. So this is all shaping up to be a very big iOS update. But with any major iOS update is a slew of bugs and glitches. Well, it looks like Apple is taking note of that too. Apple actually briefly paused development of all their 2024 OS releases to work out on some bugs. This was of course to prevent a repeat of iOS 16, iOS 11, iOS 9, and iOS 7. But even though Apple's working out some bugs for iOS 18, I think we may still see some devices drop with iOS 18. With iOS 16, we saw the dropping of the iPhone 6s and iPhone 7 series, and even though iOS 17 seemed like a very minor upgrade, it still dropped support for the iPhone 8, 8 Plus, and iPhone 10. With iOS 18 being a massive update, it's looking very likely that the iPhone XS, XS Max, and iPhone XR will be dropped with this release, making the oldest supported iPhones the iPhone 11, 11 Pro, 11 Pro Max, and the second-gen iPhone SE. As for iPads, the slowest supported iPads right now are the 2017 second-gen iPad Pro models, the 6th-gen 2018 iPad, and the 7th-gen 2019 iPad. Again, with iPadOS 18 being a massive upgrade, it's safe to say that these models will be dropped, leaving the 2018 iPad Pro and newer, 2019 iPad Mini and newer, 2019 iPad Air and newer, and 2020 iPad and newer. iOS 18 and all of Apple's OS releases will be announced at WWDC 2024 in June. Expect an announcement for WWDC in February or March. The first developer beta of iOS 18 will be released on the day of WWDC, which is most likely going to be June 3rd, and the public beta will be released in late June or early July, and it will be released to the public in September alongside the iPhone 16 series. So, with a massive redesign, AI features, sideloading, RCS support, and bug fixes, iOS 18 is definitely looking to be the biggest iOS update in over a decade. What feature of iOS 18 are you most looking forward to?